Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is an amazing week. A week following an amazing solar eclipse.
A very intense solar eclipse.
Intense!
Whoa!
So, welcome to Pure Pollino. I'm Michelle Pollino, my co-host on Tuesday, the ever-gracious Rachel Lang.
Hello.
How are you feeling today? Better?
I feel better, yeah.
Good,
I
good.
feel pretty good.
Yeah, we missed you last night.
I know.
We were on the show, Kindred Spirits, with John and Chandra. But Rachel was supposed to be there, but she was definitely feeling ill. But you're feeling better.
I'm feeling better.
Good. So today, how do you know when it's right? I mean, is he or she really the one? This is another question that we field constantly in our sessions. Well, the one thing I can tell you is there is definitely some answers in your chart. Plus, the weekend solar eclipse in Scorpio, sitting in close conjunction with Saturn and Mercury in retrograde, ushered in some huge changes. These changes are going to resonate with us for the next 6 months. And it's all about new beginnings right now, but we might not be able to see it just yet. So hold on to that thought as we continue this show. We'll talk a little bit about those changes. Plus, Venus moves into
Capricorn.
Yeah.
Venus is happy in Capricorn, I think. It's about commitment and stability and
she's much more predictable. She's much more steady, pragmatic. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be running through the grass naked with Venus in Capricorn. Although
I might.
You might.
No. Well, when it comes up, when it hits Pluto, because Pluto's in Capricorn.
Yeah.
So in another week or so, when Venus comes up with Pluto, you might be doing a lot of things in the grass naked.
Right. True. That's true. But love is definitely serious. It's changed
commitment.
It's all about commitment. A lot of people get married under this configuration.
They do.
Or engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So,
move in together.
We'll talk about what that means for you. What is it in your charts? We will absolutely field your calls. And in the chat room, we're always answering questions because I love being in there. Also, this week, Mercury ends its 3-week retrograde cycle.
Woohoo!
Yeah. But hold on. It's not until Sunday. But still, we know it's going. We know it's going direct soon. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, that also heads retrograde for 4 months. So during the holidays, we're going to have Venus in Capricorn. Yes. Effects between the by the two of
And that's interesting to see composite charts stacked up against each person's natal chart and see what in the relationship brings out the best, maybe what brings out the worst, and where your challenge is.
That's true. I always look at, it's interesting. Well, we'll go through all of them, but let's start out with the part of a chart that I think both of us kind of navigate to find out who this person is in relationships and what they're looking for in relationships, and that is the 7th house.
7th house is the house of relationships, and it's actually directly across from the 1st house, which is the house of self. And so when you look at the 7th house, you can see the kind of people that you gravitate towards. And it's interesting because the 7th house is traditionally known as the house of hidden enemies.
That's true. And we can talk about that too, because I'm glad you brought that up. Growing up, and again, I'm very self-taught, and I read a lot about this, and I didn't realize also about the hidden enemies until it started to evolve. And a lot of this comes from experience and me going through stuff and seeing my friends go through stuff and studying their charts. And it's just consistently been true that sooner or later you're going to hit somebody in that house that really doesn't treat you well.
And anyone who's been through a breakup or divorce knows that the person that you most love can eventually become the person that you have the biggest challenge with.
Yes. Well, yeah, just say it. It's the person that might cheat on you, or
right. That triggers all kinds of emotional upheaval.
Yes, and yeah,
and it's also the house of legal matters too, which that's what marriage, the certificate is. It's a legal contract.
It's a legal contract between two people. So it's a very important house.
It is.
And every time I look at, also with transits, I always look what planet. Everybody asks, "Oh, am I going to meet somebody?" It's the first question off everybody's lips. I always look what's going on in the 7th house. Mm-hmm. Don't you? I mean, that's...
And, well, actually, it depends. If the person is coming because they're in a relationship and they're looking to meet someone to have an affair with, or they're looking for an escape, then a lot of times the 5th house, which is the house of romance, it's also the house of children and self-expression, but in terms of relationships, it's the house of romance. The 5th house can usually be pretty packed if someone is getting ready to
conceive.
Well, that too, yeah. If someone's meeting a romantic connection,
right,
and it feels like the energy of an affair. I'm not necessarily saying that it's limited to that. Then the 5th house can be represented very, very well.
I think also I see that in a lot of married couples with a bunch of kids. We see
totally.
that 5th house activity,
Yeah.
like my cousins, Steph and Art. They have such a great chart. Like he's an Aquarius. She's a Libra with her moon in Leo. So they have that sun-moon conjunction in their synastry chart. Then their composite is stacked with 5th and 11th house stuff. Planets, Venus, Mars, stacked.
So fun.
And yeah, they have a fun life. They have great kids.
And they're probably great friends.
And they are great friends. They are. That is something that's really true about them as a couple. They are great friends. And I love reading their charts. It's just... everything that we've learned and grown to know is in their charts. So I always use them as an example because they're a great example. So yeah, planets in the 7th house and also planets in the 5th house. People with planets in the 7th house also, like people with any kind of a planet in the 7th house, like the sun in the 7th house, suggests a person who might negotiate and compromise because partnerships are so important to that person.
Especially if if you're talking about natal planets in the 7th house, right? Natal.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So if someone's meaning at the time of your birth, you have planets that are in the 7th house. Those are always going to be in your 7th house, and anytime someone has the sun in the 7th house, the moon in the 7th house, Venus in the 7th house, but in their natal chart, that person a lot of times can find their own sense of identity and purpose, and their sense of self through partnerships, through relationships, and so relationships play a really big role in those those lives. Also,
the other thing that's pretty interesting to me is the ruler of your 7th house, whatever your 7th house is, the ruler of the 7th house. Look for planets. I'll use me as an example, and I'll use you as an example next.
Use you as an example.
So I have Taurus at I think 26 degrees. So I look for the ruler of Taurus, look for the house that it sits in, to look for where I'm going to meet my lover or my marriage partner. And the ruler of Taurus is Venus. Venus sits in my 6th house. I have always fallen in love with people that I meet through work. Always. And it's a very interesting aspect, and it's something that a lot of people overlook. I look for it immediately. Rulers of planets on house rulers indicate a lot.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before because your ruler is
yes.
Pluto.
Well, so yeah.
Yes.
So the ruler of my 7th house is Pluto, and Pluto's in mutual reception actually with Scorpio in my chart. So and my Venus sits in the 6th house.
It's what makes you so irresistible.
I don't know. Thank you. I don't know.
You know it. I love you. You sometimes don't know it, but that's all right. So that's why I shout it out. But yes, so when you have that mutual reception, and we can talk about that a little bit later because this solar eclipse had that mutual reception going on. Yeah. It was very powerful, and that's what made it very powerful. So let's talk a little bit more about the sun in the 7th house. How we doing? Everything's all right, right?
Okay.
Sync is something's going on. I can see it in the chat room, but I'm trying to ignore it the best way I can.
Wait,
So-
can I just say? So we talked about a little bit about this eclipse, but did you? I don't know if you felt this, but after the moon finally moved out of Scorpio yesterday, did you feel like this weight was lifted?
It's been interesting for me because both of us are heavily aspected from this.
Right.
And I saw a lot of my friends with Taurus rising go nuts yesterday. I was waiting for that call. I was waiting for that call. And I have felt I've been going back and forth between a little bit of disillusionment because my Neptune's there and just back and forth with it. So finally, yes, yesterday I felt kind of released from it. Mm-hmm. I felt this surge of positivity on Sunday, then this weight, this burden Monday morning.
Right.
And then this kind of let go towards the end of the day. And I had to keep going. Man, meditation's a pain in my ass sometimes. Because, I know it's good for me. And I know it really does work. But sometimes, and these are the times, because I wrote a blog about it, these are the times that we really need to do it. Because the universe is kind of in sync with us right now. The universe is going to help us if we meditate, manifest things a little bit better right now. But it's still out of my grasp a little bit. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
In all honesty, that's what I felt this weekend.
Well, I think a lot of times, I think that is so great that you said that you made that point, because I think that's what a lot of people were experiencing. And what happens with an eclipse is that, in a solar eclipse especially, is that so many external distractions can come up, and that desire, that tendency, not even a desire, but it's a tendency that we all have to sabotage what's in our best interests.
Right.
Because what would happen if we got what we wanted? What would happen if we achieved happiness and we were in that state of close to perfection? We would all our nervous systems wouldn't know how to keep up.
They would explode. So that's a really great thought to go into break on. And we're going to fix those sync problems right now. We're having some sync problems, so we're going to fix that on break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that. Really meditating on new beginnings right now, and the what ifs. We did find that partner, because guess what? This is a great time to do it, people.
This is
a great time. We're going to talk about synastry when we come back, a little bit more about the 7th and 5th house and composite charts when we come back, so stay with us on Pure Pollino. I love me some Ryan Adams.
I know. Me too.
He's a Scorpio, because
is.
this is the month of Scorpio. You know what I do on this show. I pick out.
You like to play musicians who were born in that, who represent that sign.
That's true. And I believe he has a moon in Cancer. Is that? Yeah, 29 degrees Cancer. He is a water baby all the way. He's got Venus and Mars in Scorpio. Mandy Moore's got to be water. That's all I'm saying. That's his wife, right? Let's find out what she is real quick. So let's talk a little bit. We are back. This is Pure Pollino. My name is Michelle Pollino. With me, as always, Rachel Lang. And we are talking relationships. How do you know when it's right? Well, we have aspects right now. We're going to tell you exactly why we know it's right when we look at your charts. So first of all, the sun and the moon.
And the ascendant. There has to be, so your sun and your moon and your ascendant are personality. Like, basically they tell you what is important to you in your life, who you are, how you express, how you sort of express yourself in the world. And if there's not some kind of compatibility, some kind of influence between your chart and your sun, moon, and ascendant and the other person's, some kind of connection has to be made, or else you're just not going to feel like you can relate to one another as easily or as well. So that's the first thing we look at. Is there something going on with one of those three influences? Then we go to Venus and Mars, because those are the relationship planets. And so I like to see in compatibility charts at least some kind of Venus-Mars connection. And it can be an opposition, it can be a square, which we tend to think of as more challenging. But a lot of times, if someone has a lot of strong Leo in their chart, they need some tension. Or if someone has, a strong Pluto, there has to be a little bit of intensity. So an opposition and a square aren't necessarily negatives. They can actually make for a really interesting dynamic relationship.
It actually helps you grow when you have that dynamic. And what I see a lot in people's charts that become lovers is the Venus-Mars aspect. That is, say you have a Venus in Taurus. Your partner will have...
like you do.
Your
partner will have what?
A Mars in Scorpio.
That's...
Because hypothetically speaking, they are opposites and they attract like no other. They also create excitement in the bedroom, and it is a powerful force that I see in most of your longer lasting relationships. Speaking of longer lasting, there's always one planet that comes into play.
Saturn.
That's right.
Saturn is the planet of karma. So it a lot of times shows, if you believe in past lives, past life connections. If you don't believe in past lives, it shows that this person reminds you of someone in your family. This person reminds you of your past. You can read it, either way, whatever, depending on your beliefs. If there's not Saturn represented, and I will say that Saturn can also show where the challenges are in your relationships.
It's true.
And where you might feel sort of, like a power struggles and control issues and limitations.
Yeah. I usually have some problems with Leos because my Saturn's in Aquarius.
And my Saturn's in Leo. So.
Right. Which is so funny.
No.
We're just opposite all the way around.
That's so crazy.
It is crazy. North Node. We've talked about the nodes on the show before. They are also very important. And you will always find some kind of aspect, whether it be hard or soft, between one of the major planets being Sun. If it's Moon, forget about it. Forget about it.
Yes.
That's golden. Or the ascendant.
Right. And a lot of times too, what's interesting is if the south node is opposite of the north node, they're on an axis, and if the south node is connected to one of the other person's planets, sometimes it can be too messy. The relationship can be too much of where you've been and not enough of where you're going.
Yeah, that's where a lot of relationships break up, because in the beginning, it's great, you fit like a glove, but the truth of the matter is, you're not helping each other grow. And part of our, part of us being here on this earth is to grow.
Right.
It is.
It is.
So, within, nobody has a perfect relationship. There's no perfect astrological chart. There's no perfect person out there that it's all blue triangles. When I say blue triangles, all good.
Triangles.
Good aspects.
Means the energy flows.
Right. You have to have some growth. I've just did a chart for a woman the other day where it was clear to me the Taurus, her seventh house Taurus, it did not work with her north node, and she broke up the marriage because she just wasn't growing. It just wasn't aspecting. There were no aspects to her north node. It was all south node. So they're very comfortable together. They love each other in a way that it's love.
Like family.
Like family, exactly. But is there your potential for your soul's growth? There wasn't any there. And so she the need was, the desire was so great in her that there was a creation that was made. This is great how our mind creates stuff that enabled her to get out. So it's very interesting. That's how important that aspect is. What about vertex for you? Do you look at the vertex?
I do. Yes. Yeah. I tend to look at more of the big. I look at the whole picture.
Right.
And sometimes I look at a relationship and think, it's completely doomed. But but a lot of times, like you say, since we're growing, we'll attract relationships that are completely doomed, that aren't that because we need, it's like a stepping stone. We need that to move on to something else. So really, what I like to look at when someone comes to me and they say, I've met somebody, and you know, tell me if this is going to work. Or two people come in and they say, you know, are we compatible? The first thing I do is look at what transits did they have and what progressions were they encountering when they met. Because a lot of times people come into our lives for a season. Sometimes they come in forever.
For a reason.
For a reason.
For a reason, a season, and then
a
a lifetime.
Aww.
You're so funny. But I think it's, you know, it's also interesting because I've seen a lot of amazing charts where they just mess it up because they have their stuff. And there's nothing you can do about people's stuff. I mean, they could have amazing aspects. Have you run across this?
Yes.
Because I have.
Yes, totally.
Amazing aspects. And they look great on paper, but they are going to mess it up because they need to clear out the whiteboard. They need to clear it out.
Because they have Saturn in retrograde and they have abandonment issues and fears. or some, I don't mean anything negative about people with Saturn in retrograde. But you know, like she's saying, you have your childhood wounds.
Right.
Or your old wounds.
You know, even though these aspects that we talk about are very strong, and these are, again, 5 or 6 aspects that we look for when doing charts for lovers, and they are the strongest things that you can have in a chart that will tell you you're going to be with somebody. Mm-hmm. You can also have problems relating to people that psychologically, you know, even though your chart says you're great together, you're going to mess it up. Mm-hmm. So...
And I will say we didn't talk about Pluto and Neptune too, and how they play into this. But Neptune is the planet that causes us to see everything like an illusion, and a lot of times it can cause people to go into denial about what really is, you know, are there really major problems in the relationship? And if a relationship chart or composite chart has a lot of Neptune, then the couple might not be necessarily in touch with reality. Mm-hmm. They might do a lot of traveling. They might find ways to escape. They might have some you know, really romantic outlets, but are they going to be able to pay the bills? Are they going to be able to keep the house cleaned? So it's important to look at how that plays into it. And Pluto just adds a lot of intensity. Yeah, and so if you have a lot of Pluto oppositions in your compatibility chart, the relationship might meet so many cause you to come up against so many psychological barriers and so many issues from your childhood that it's just too overwhelming. And the relationship could you know, experience some hardship.
Explode.
Thank you.
Explode.
Michelle's always good at taking what I want to say to another level.
It could explode. That happened to me, one of my first relationships. So yeah, it just was too intense. It was too intense.
That was a season.
That was a few seasons.
Or a reason.
It was definitely a reason. It was definitely a reason. There's also one aspect, too, that even if you don't have many of the other aspects, is just as strong, and that's the midpoint. That's the sun-moon midpoint.
Absolutely. Which... yeah, the midpoint is basically your sun and your moon come the place where they meet in your chart, and every planetary influence, every planet has a midpoint with other planets, right? And so those play into compatibility in relationship charts significantly, right? And even in looking at predictive work. Midpoints play into that factor heavily. Yeah,
the midpoint. In the best way I can explain it is the true balance of the male and female in the individual. And when that comes into contact with another, it's a very equal relationship, right? Whether it be a hard or soft aspect, it becomes a very equal relationship. One of the other one aspect that I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to, we kind of talked about it a little bit, was Saturn and how important it is in relationships. But when you have what I see in a lot of gay couple composites or even synastry charts is the Venus-Saturn aspect, because it inhibits your PDA. It inhibits PDA. It basically, and I see it a lot in gay couples charts, a lot. It comes up pretty much almost all the time, which I think is like incredible.
That's really interesting. I haven't noticed that.
Oh yeah,
that makes so much sense because it's a limit. Saturn is the planet of limitation, restriction, control, and Venus is the planet of love and romance and sexuality. And so with that, with a square or a conjunction or some kind of, or an opposition or some kind of pattern there, that would make sense that there would be some primal fears, some real fears that come up around that.
Yes, absolutely. It's really definitely something that comes up again and again and again.
A lot of the times too in gay charts, Neptune plays a heavy role. Neptune in the 7th or 8th, because the relationship transcends the physical.
Yes,
and it moves more into the spiritual.
Isn't that amazing? Now, these are just the little things that we see. We got some questions now. We're going to be fielding questions and taking your calls for charts. If you have relationship questions, the phone lines are open. You can call us at 323-284-7826. This is Pure Pollino. We're talking astrological configurations in love and relationships today. So Elena's asking about 2 Cancer Saturns, one direct and one partner retrograde. First of all, the Cancer retrograde, I would be... they are very fearful about exposing their emotions, and that is a huge issue. They can come up to past, a lot of problems in their past and their childhood could come up in this.
They can be very sentimental too. If they've done some therapy, significant therapy, if they've really done a lot of healing, then a lot of times they have the tools to move past those real innate fears.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also two Sag Neptunes. I mean, that's actually a pretty good spot.
I think that's a good placement for Neptune.
But 2 Pluto Libras, that conjunction is pretty intense as well.
Especially if that, if
it aspects the Cancer, absolutely.
I was going to say, if it aspects the Cancer, absolutely. The Cancer, then there would be some. I would say that there could be some real cathartic arguments.
Cathartic and really
like life-changing, bringing up everything into the open. Cathartic meaning
emotionally transforming.
Totally.
That's basically it. Emotionally transforming.
Mm-hmm.
We Venus aspects are pretty much the cornerstone of any love relationship chart I've ever done in my life. How about you?
I think Venus and the Moon too, because Moon is your emotional life, and so many of our mother issues play out in the Moon, and so I think that for me, I'm always drawn to the Moon. Like, what is the Moon doing in this person's chart? But Venus is important because it's also who are you attracted to.
It's true. It's always who are you attracted
right.
to,
physically, romantically. And you could have a great friend, but if there isn't a strong Venus or Mars connection, then
it's just a friend.
Yeah, it's just a friend.
They say she's just a friend. They say she's But yeah, no, that is. I have a Venus in Taurus, but all of my friends are Scorpios. I never ever dated a Scorpio. Never even remotely thought about it. But because I've had so many Scorpios around me my whole life, both my parents and it's just not something. They've always been the best of friends, and even though my Venus is in Taurus, and I've not dated a Taurus either. So,
where's your Mars?
Pisces. Yeah.
I had to reset my iPad, so I lost all my charts.
Oh, no.
I know.
So anyway, we're going to go to a break. We're going to take your questions again. Coming back, we got a few in the chat room. Call in 323-284-7826. Coming right back. This is Pure Pollino on ubnradio.com. I love me some Drake and Rihanna because they are water signs too.
We're having a Pure Pollino dance singing party, dance party, karaoke day.
This is Pure Pollino. My name is Michelle Pollino. Welcome back. We're talking all about love and relationships. The 7th house, the 5th house. That's where the activity lies. Rachel Lang, my co-host. We are exactly opposites, our charts, and we always have fun hanging out and talking with each other.
In a lot of ways, we're opposites.
We are.
We have the same moon sign, though, so
we do.
It keeps us
talking.
We're
both Moon and Gemini. Neither one wants to shut up. But I wanted to say Drake is a Scorpio, of course. Rihanna is a Pisces with her Moon in Leo. She's the consummate performer.
Totally.
She's so gorgeous too. My God.
Beautiful.
Like, hello.
Beautiful.
Okay. Love Fest is over for Drake and Rihanna. We are back in love with Rachel and Michelle here on Pure Pollino. And even though we were talking a lot about Venus, Mars is sex. Mars is passion. Mars, when you have that Mars conjunction with somebody, you have the best sex of your life. You're never going to forget it.
You're never going to leave the bedroom.
You're never going to leave the bedroom, right? Because it's active. Mm-hmm. Mars is it's activating. If you got a Mars Sun conjunction, like say your Mars is in Aries and
Pisces
or Pisces, and you meet another Aries or Pisces, and you have that conjunction, you're either playing sports or you're in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and a lot of times your Mars placement actually tells you what, or your partner's Mars placement. You can look at that to see what they might like in the bedroom.
Play sports in the bedroom, somebody said in the chat room. I love that.
So, for Mars and Aries, that actually would make sense. It's
actually a Neptune aspect to that. Would have people playing dress up for sure.
Right. And Mars and Leo too is
Mars and Leo is huge dress up time. Yeah. If your boyfriend or girlfriend has a Mars and Leo, play dress up and you have them down. Yeah. They will be your slave.
Mm-hmm. Your Mars also tells you how much sex you need, or how much you want, or how much you don't want.
Right.
And so someone who has a Mars and Aries, for example, usually physically has the need to express themselves sexually. And it's not even like a psychological need for affection. It's physical.
Right, it is
they
physical.
Need sex.
Right.
And unless it's aspected in a negative way by Saturn, they need a lot of sex. Mars.
Do you know somebody like that? I'm just saying. It looked familiar.
No.
There was a familiar glimpse in your eye.
No, that wasn't from personal experience. That was from what I've read in books.
Right. What I've read in books. There she goes.
I haven't done any experimentation with this, so I can't. I'm not an expert on the subject. Maybe.
Love it, yes.
Then if your Mars is in the sign of Cancer, then you need the emotional compatibility, and you need the security, and you need to feel snugly, and you want to cuddle, and you probably need the fire and the candles and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Mars in Virgo a lot of times need a ritual around it.
Yes.
I'm not talking about anything crazy.
Not S&M or any kind of ritualistic barrier. But if it's aspected to Scorpio and Pluto, then you got it.
Then you might need to be tied up.
Right.
But you have your certain protocol that you have to have. And it might involve taking a shower together or something along those lines. That would be,
yes, absolutely Mars and Virgo.
Reading poetry.
Right. Reading poetry in bed.
Mars and Virgo and Mars and Scorpio can shut it off.
Yes.
They can.
Well, Mars and Gemini can too.
Yeah. Mars and Gemini just needs to play.
Right.
And so if they're getting play in other ways, if they're in a relationship where they're going to the park and they've got kids and they're always engaged, then they can shut it off. That's not like a real need.
Well, I've dated a few Mars and Gemini, and they've been more intellectually pursuing. They've been people that definitely find the poetry in bed aspect very stimulating. They find, it's the books that you have in your bedroom for the Mars in Gemini people that really kind of turn them on. Mm-hmm. Again, because you look to the ruler of the planet. Both Gemini and Virgo ruled by Mercury, which is the mind. Mm-hmm. So
and the hands. I'm glad you brought this up because each sign rules a different part of the body, and so you can look at the sun sign and the Mars sign and see what parts of the body might be the most sensitive. So Mars and Gemini, for example, the hands and the arms are going to be really sensitive. Taurus, Sun, Taurus rising, Taurus Mars, neck is really sensitive. So that's your partner's spot. Yeah, so you can see that astrology actually can help your love life.
It absolutely can, without a doubt. You can really find your partner's like soft spot. Let's go through all the signs because I don't want to leave anybody out. So,
so Mars and Aries. So we talked about Mars and Aries, Mars and Taurus. Now this Mars placement, Mars and Taurus is the most sensual placement for Mars. And this is a person who wants the long drawn out experience of sex, and they can have sex for hours, and it's a very passionate placement for Mars. It's ruled by Venus. Taurus is.
Tom Cruise has a Mars and Taurus. It also has when it's aspected well, it can provide great drive and stamina and electricity. He's got a Venus in Leo and a Mars and Taurus square, which also square his his moon's also in Leo. But he's got great stamina, and you can see that in his acting, and obviously he's got some other issues, but he's a definite sensuous Mars and Taurus individual. You can see he's very passionate and sensuous, and that's Mars and Taurus, and Venus and Taurus as well.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's a
it's all about
placement.
Food for me.
Yeah,
I mean, you put food around me
and food and pleasure.
The pleasures of life. You got me.
Right.
I'm absolutely. She was saying this off the air, but I'm definitely. I lean towards romantic.
She is. You've got your Mars and your Sun both in Pisces, which is really you like romance. You see things. You can see relationships, and you can see possibilities in relationships through rose-colored glasses. And a lot of times, Pisces are actually, and Mars and Pisces are actually very sensual because Neptune rules the pineal gland. And that is I'm going to get really esoteric. I'll bring it down.
Ricky Martin, also Mars and Pisces. A lot of performers that can really get into their sexuality
on a spiritual level.
Kundalini
sexuality.
Kundalini sexuality. Mars and Scorpio, Mars and Pisces. Mars and Cancer, not so much.
Mars and Cancer, it needs more security, needs more protection.
Right.
And if they're leaving this dimension and sort of like leaving their bodies and going into an ecstatic state, then they don't feel safe, and they feel vulnerable. So
all about that safety.
Yeah.
And we already talked about Mars and Leo because I want to get to the new moon solar eclipse, what it did for people, plus Uranus and Pluto. Who else did we leave out? We got Mars and Leo, dramatics. Mars and Gemini, we talked about. Taurus,
Mars and Virgo,
Libra, Mars and Libra.
Mars and Libra are they're usually very partnership driven, and they're not necessarily the most faithful.
Either Venus and Gemini.
Yeah. Mars and Venus and Gemini. Mars and Libra, and especially men with Mars and Libra, love women.
Yeah.
And they love that sensual experience and
Michael Douglas.
And so they can a lot of times attract distractions into their lives.
Right.
And
same goes for Venus and Gemini. Two things that you've got a few minutes. Two things that you should look for in charts that if you're thinking that your partner might be cheating on you, you should look up their chart and see if they have this aspect, because it's also, and if they see if they have any kind of aspects in your 12th house. That's also a key indicator.
Neptune can indicate affairs.
Yeah. We're getting the 5-minute wrap up, so I want to touch on a number of things today. First of all,
in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, the new moon solar eclipse over the weekend, it launched a phase. It's going to take the next 6 months of our lives. We're going to see it unfold. I wrote a blog about it this weekend, asking people to meditate and start to understand that this is connected to Saturn, which is your daddy, we're talking about money, we're talking about goals, we're talking about power, we're talking about prestige, we're talking about all these things. This is what this new moon activated this weekend. And why I wrote the blog specifically to help people manifest things, meditate on your value, and then go for it and then, be open to the possibilities of what could occur, because there is a lot of things happening.
There is. I would agree with that. And also this new moon cycle is really good for being realistic about what
right.
is it that you can achieve and what is it that you want. On a not just for 5 years down the road, but what do you want right now?
Yeah, and that's all. That also needs to. If you weren't clear going into this weekend, things will become clear over the next 6 months.
Well, actually, over the next 2 weeks.
Over the next
because
couple weeks.
when the moon
hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
That's amore. When the moon gets when it's full, that's when, and that's 2 weeks from now.
Right.
That's when answers are clearer. You
right.
can see in the full moon.
It's not just that, but another thing that I wanted to touch on is Mercury goes direct. At the end of this week on Sunday, Mercury finally goes direct. A lot of things are going to become clear. So while you're meditating this week, I'm still feeling fuzzy. I still sometimes I'm trying to figure out how to do this, but I'm lucky to have Rachel and everybody in this room with me, and my friends and family and all you that listen that understand that we're all doing this process together. And I struggle and find, both Rachel and I every week try to figure out ways that we can bring you some guidance and make it concrete and real. That's important. It's really important. So that's why we always set about tasks to do and times to do it, because believe me, times are changing right now. It's very clear. On Bob's show this morning, Marianne Williamson, she's now gone out on a limb and said, I'm gonna run for Congress, even though she might be made fun of and they might attack her, which politics is a nasty game. But we have what's called a Uranus-Pluto square right now that is really just urging people to get up off their asses and do something. And that's what I think is incredible. We got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree that this is a time of revolution and evolution, and I think Marianne Williamson is her slogan is create anew, and I think that is such a mark of what the opportunity that we all have in our own personal lives, but also in the political climate that we're in.
Right. It's very huge. So this power is still with us. I want you all to take it and really do something with it, and look up your charts, and don't always join us online in the chat rooms. You can look up your chart on astro.com and just throw it in there. We will absolutely give you a reading, and call us anytime. We are here for you. We created this show just for you, to give you guidance, because we know how important this is. It's extremely important. I want to say congratulations to Bob on a great show with Marianne Williamson today. I know it was like a dream come true for you, and he's in the room right now, but you can't see him. So I just wanted to say congratulations. We kind of attacked her on the way out. We attacked her, and
we didn't really attack her. Mars Sun conjunction. We approached her and said we loved her, and we invited her to be on our show.
And so she said yes.
And she said yes. We will coordinate that
and bring that to you. So we're really excited about that.
I'm so excited.
We are insanely excited about that.
I love her. She's been one of my role models for a long time.
Yeah, I think she's been many a role model. Coming up next, Dr. Marissa Pei. She talks about her creative series, Inspiration, The Wisdom Project TM, on the air with her guest, Joe Cosgrove, author of Walt Dreamers and Me. That's going to be pretty exciting. Thanks to Rachel. Follow her at Rachel Lang 11, right, at Twitter?
On Twitter.
And get a reading at rachelclang.com. Friend us at Facebook/Pure Pollino. Follow me on Twitter at Pure Pollino. Book a reading at michellepollino.com. Thursday, it's all in the family. Have you ever thought about a family member should meet two families who took their ideas from their home and heart? First, the husband and wife team from Bestia will be here, and also the sisters that own yuccas. That's coming up on Thursday at Pure Pollino. Remember, it's not who you love, it's how you love. Make it beautiful. Love you guys.